I'm Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions, and in today's episode we're going to talk about range and how much is enough. And so for today's discussion, we're going to use as a real-world example this 1974 Karmann Ghia, and we're going to talk about range that the vehicle has, that we had planned for the vehicle, and how we looked at it, what we decided to do, and so forth. So join us as we discuss range. How much is enough? So before we start talking about range, we're going to give you a quick little overview of the vehicle. Many of you have seen overviews of this vehicle in the past. This car has been featured in several of our videos. But for new viewers, we're going to do a quick overview, and then we're going to discuss range, and in particular range with this vehicle. What are our options, and why have we chosen what we've chosen for this vehicle? So let's do a little walk around and take a little closer up view of our 1974 Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. All right. The 1974 Karmann Ghia is the last of the Karmann Ghias. And so this one is used as a demonstration vehicle, so you can see all the stock rat's nest of wiring there and some of the stuff that we've added. In not the most ideal location, if this was going to be a car that you were going to use for normal purposes, is the battery charger. We've got it located in the center here for display purposes, but you could easily stash it somewhere else out of the way and have the full space under the bonnet here. What we have here is the auxiliary battery, and down here is the DC to DC converter. We always in our vehicles use both a DC to DC converter and auxiliary battery together. We have a video that discusses why we do that. I will note at this point that we've never had a DC to DC converter fail, and I attribute that to the fact that they are used in this fashion. Right here we have a junction box which our charger's plugged into, and inside that is our safety interlock, which disables the vehicle while it's plugged in being charged. We also have a little trickle charger down here next to the auxiliary battery, and that's plugged in there also. So whenever the vehicle is plugged in, the auxiliary battery is being charged, and anytime the ignition switch is on, the auxiliary battery is being charged also. So in other words, the DC to DC converter is turned on with the ignition switch. And this is an inertia switch here, just to disable the vehicle in the event of an accident. This charger can operate off either 110 or 220. All that we ever use is 110, and here's the charge port. This vehicle was in Davis, California yesterday and got driven around quite a bit, and so she's being charged right now. We'll take a look at the inside in a moment. In the back we have one very dirty engine compartment because this thing was in the rain this last week and wasn't cleaned. Hasn't been cleaned in a while, so dust and water and rain and everything else. You can see here we have our shunt. We have our Evnetic Soliton Junior controller. We've got our throttle. This is an Impulse 9 motor. It has a retrofitted Garrett supercharger as a cooling motor for the Impulse 9. Very little airflow in the back end of the car here, which Karmann Ghias are known for, both gasoline and electric now. And so we kind of aid in the cooling. The Avnetics is liquid cooled. There's our reservoir. There's a pump behind this panel. We have underneath, we have a radiator and a couple fans, as well as another heat exchanger to help keep that cool. And it does a very nice job. And we're in a climate where we get, well, here last year this car was driven in 118 degrees. And the controller operated going down the interstate up and down hills at 75 miles an hour without any problem. Big improvement over the air-cooled Curtis controller that we originally installed in here. The dash is simple. We have our speedometer, and then we have a 12-volt gauge. The 12-volt gauge is so that we can monitor our auxiliary battery and our DC to DC converter operation. Bottom here you see a red light. That comes on when you turn on the ignition for a few seconds as the pre-charge circuit in the controller is operating, and then the light goes out, lets you know it's ready to go. This display is not currently being used. This is the JLD 404. You can see we're charging right here, and we're putting in 7.9 to 8 amps into our pack. We're at 147.8 volts. This is a 146 volt nominal pack. We charge to a maximum of 154 volts, which is 3.5 volts per cell. And we've got 35.1 amp hours left to put back in the pack before she's fully charged. The battery pack, which we'll show you some photos of, is where the package shelf was originally in this vehicle. I don't know all the years, but I know 73 and 74 did not have a rear seat. They had what was called a package shelf. And so this vehicle has the batteries in that location. So behind where a seat would be, that void back there, that's all open. You can put a lot of groceries in this car, but it moved the weight forward to the rear axle. So here's the battery pack in this area right here. Forward to the rear axle, nice and low. Center of the weight's right about here. So as I move back, you can see just before the curve there of the body, before the rear, behind the door and before the rear axle there, which makes this car handle very nicely. We've got footage of this being autocrossed as well as at Laguna Seca. And let me tell you, she went down through the corkscrew very nicely. This is a very fun car to drive. So, let's talk about range. So let's talk about range. We're going to use a real world example, like I mentioned, and that's how it pertains to the Karmann Ghia. So here's the picture. About once a month, I drive to Chico, California from our shop here in Shasta Lake, California. And doorstep to doorstep, it's 83 miles. And so the idea was to be able to drive the Karmann Ghia from the shop to where we attend our local Electric Auto Association chapter meetings in Chico. And so that would mean increasing the current range. So with the current range of 60 miles, we just wouldn't be able to do that. So we would need to make some modifications. So we're going to discuss those modifications. So let's start off with what we have to begin with. We've got a 60-mile range using 44 100 amp hour cells. That gives us 146 volts, and it's a 14.6 kilowatt hour pack. It weighs 308 pounds, and at current prices would run you $6,556 approximately. Now, the goal would be to increase the range to 100 miles. That would get us, and that's, safe miles. That's not exceeding 80% depth of discharge. So that would give us, a little bit of margin over the 83 miles that are required. And so you might want additional margin. I like margin, but we're going to use this for the example. This is one of the scenarios that we calculated. And so to obtain that 100 miles, we'd increase our pack size to 50 of the 180 ampere hour cells, which would up our voltage to 165 volts, which would mean our pack capacity now is 29.7 kilowatt hours. And the pack would weigh 625 pounds, and the cost would be for that pack $12,950. So the net would be an increase of 40 miles from our existing range, an increase of 15.1 kilowatt hours on the pack size, an increase of 317 pounds, that's over, double what we started with, and almost double the cost, an additional $6,394. And so what that kind of boiled down to is, it's an extra 8 pounds per additional mile, an extra $160 per additional mile. See, originally we had 5 pounds per mile for the 60-mile range. It's 6.25 pounds per mile for the 100 miles. $109 per mile on the 60-mile range, and $130. And the reason for the difference is, as we've shown in previous videos, is that weight relationship to range and cost. So, it's doable. We could increase this, even more, greater number of cells, give us a greater range. We could take that up to 120 miles, let's say, and go with additional margin. But these two figures are what we're most interested in at that point, and which would continue to increase. So, bottom line is, the result would be that we would get the increase in range that we had desired, but we'd also have an increase in weight and cost. We'd have a decrease in handling, braking, and acceleration. Now, you do know that, the volts equals speed and amps equals torque. So we wouldn't be increasing our amps at all available, because we're still using the same controller. which is 600 amps, and it's 500 amps continuous through the Evnetic Soliton Junior. So would our top end be any higher, going from 146 volts to 165 volts with a weight increase of 317 pounds? I doubt it. The car does 94 miles an hour right now. That's plenty fast. At best, we might be able to maintain that, but I don't know that for a fact. So, like I said, decrease in handling, braking, and acceleration, all due to the increase in weight. And so, what does that do to the fun factor? Well, depends on your objective. If you need the additional range, then that's all that matters. But in this scenario, for our vehicle, it was just simply a desire to go outside of the normal realm of our daily usage, to do this occasional trip to Chico. And so, in my mind, the negatives outweigh the positives. And so we decided not to change, and we've stayed with the original setup. That car's driven on average 50 miles per day. It's been driven 83 miles in a day before, and every time it's back in the shop, it's plugged in. And we've done that with only using 110 volt charging. We just don't have the need for anything else. And so, another example of that vehicle use, it was in Davis, California yesterday for an event, and we drove it around Davis, and checking the GPS, the California Auto Museum was only 15 miles away in Sacramento, which meant we could drive the 30-mile round trip, mostly freeway on Interstate 80. It's all level ground, unlike what we're used to driving in. And so we actually do better in our range in the watt hours per mile department. And so, easy trip. Nice cruising at 70 miles an hour on level ground. So, let me take this moment to a little plug for the California Auto Museum, which we'll be sharing with you that visit in a future video, or videos probably. But right now they have an exhibit called It's Electrifying, Alternative Fuel Vehicles in California. And it's presented by SMUD, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. And it runs through June 15th. And so like I said, we'll share some of the aspects of that exhibit that interested me. But if you're interested, if you're in the California area or passing through Central California, their hours are 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, 7 days a week. And then the third Thursday of every month, they're open till 9 p.m. So, range. How much do you need? That's what it comes down to. You know, the old adage was speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? Well, that's still true with an electric vehicle, but there's an additional one, and that is range costs money. And I always ask, how far do you need to go? 80% of Americans drive less than 40 miles a day. I kind of exceed that, and but just because that car's a hoot to drive, and we use it whenever we have the need, that's the go-to vehicle. I prefer a light and agile vehicle. Personally, I think it's more fun to drive, and so that occasional need for, or not necessarily need, that occasional desire for extra range, it's definitely not enough to overcome the daily enjoyment of having a sprightly vehicle. We autocrossed the Carmen Ghia. It's been to Laguna Seca. Plan on having it there again this year. I believe it's July 20th. And so that's, you know, more important in this particular case with this vehicle than having that additional 40 miles of range. But your circumstances may vary. And so we have videos that discuss, you know, how to calculate range and all that. So you may want to check out those to help in making the decision of how much range you want. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please address them to info@evforyounow.com. And check out our website, evforyounow.com. And again, we thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed this video. See ya. Hello, I'm Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions. You want to learn more? You want to learn about all the components in greater detail? You want to actually install the components and wire conversion? Test it and drive it? Well, you can. By attending one of EV4U's 3-day hands-on conversion workshops. You will get a chance to learn, discuss, ask questions about all the components used in a conversion. Wiring techniques, hardware used, safety, how it all goes together, and much more. But we don't just talk about it. We go into the shop and install the components in a vehicle, wire it up, and test it. After testing in the shop, we test it on our test track and in the industrial park where we're located. One of the vehicles we'll be using in 2014 is our sand rail. It's a blast. So come join us for 3 days of education and fun. Meet people from all over in a beautiful setting while learning how to convert a vehicle from gas to electric. EV4U provides lunch each day at great local restaurants. After hours, you can visit many of the local attractions, like Shasta Lake, the largest lake in California, Shasta Dam, the second largest concrete dam in the United States, Shasta Caverns. You can take a dinner cruise on Shasta Lake, take a walk on the Sundial Bridge, visit Mount Shasta. There's night skiing available during the winter. Visit Bernie Falls National Recreation Area, or go kayaking at Whiskeytown Lake. You can check out the source of the Sacramento River. Sacramento River is the largest river in the state of California, and you can see where it bubbles out of the ground. We've got world-class fishing, hiking, and biking, all within minutes of EV4U's shop. So we'll hope you'll join us. So visit www.ev4younow.com and register today. The class sizes are limited, so don't delay.